Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you enjoy this legal education content, and today will be the day I earn that subscription. For today's story, we are dealing with a video produced by NBC News, who would like to talk about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and mostly talk about how Amber Heard has been done wrong. Been done wrong by Johnny, and been done wrong by the entire justice system, which is not recognizing true victims and not believing women and stuff. This video both surprises me and doesn't. It doesn't surprise me because this is the kind of thing we've come to expect in some ways from the media, but it does surprise me because in this particular case, it seems so blatantly obvious with the overwhelming evidence that's available at the trial, that to draw the conclusion that Amber Heard is in the right, legally or morally, or basically in any other sense, seems like a very difficult proposition. This in no way is precluding people from trying. In fact, depending on our time, we might look at some of a very, very, very long, I guess we'll call it op-ed, that someone wrote trying to explain why the entire reaction to Amber Heard, including the justice system itself, mind you, is nothing more than misogyny, not believing victims, an enemy of Me Too, and just basically everything else. But that, my friends, will have to wait. First of all, we're going to do this video, which I have not watched before. I am going to share my live reactions with you. And we start with the disclaimer of the video, which is just the starting still of the video. NBC says, warning, the following documentary contains explicit language, profanities, and descriptions of sexual violence. Also, based on what I've heard and sort of read and tangentially related to it, may also contain misstatements, half-truths, lies, carrying water, and a level of simpery for Amber Heard that seems difficult to justify on really any level at all. But they're trying anyway for some reason. All right, so we're going to watch this. I'm going to watch this for the first time ever. I have not seen this. I am looking forward to seeing whatever this is. This should be entertaining. Let's go ahead and get started with this BS. I'll turn on closed captions so we can see exactly what's going on. This will be fun. The disclaimer should say contains gaslighting. There you go.
Our coverage begins in Fairfax County, Virginia.
Around the world, the divorce of Johnny Depp and Amber
Uh-huh.
Heard getting uglier as we
Trial with actor Johnny Depp suing his ex-wife, actress Amber Heard, began.
I struggle to think of a case like this where you had both sides really using the courtroom to fight the public opinion war.
I think.
Well, there are a lot of courtrooms that are like that, and depending on your point of view, and not only in American history, but in world history. One of the things that sort of I've noted about the entire thing, about like how like this is a public trial and look at the public and look at how invested they are and stuff like this. I mean, this is not new. It's not even new to the media age. People gathered outside of courthouses as part of spectacles, basically as long as there's been courthouses. In the United States and other countries of the world, before the United States ever was a dream in anyone's eye. You know, the idea of people getting out and like having basically full-on festivals and carnivals in relation to trials is not exactly new. The celebrity trials and royalty trials and other high-profile trials of Europe, for example, would be at least on par, if not possibly put the whole Amber Heard thing to shame, depending on your point of view. So the idea that the public's involvement or interest or the alpacas is somehow emblematic of American culture or the U.S. justice system or of the social media age, I think is belied by any sort of evaluation of history. It continues to entertain me that we have no perspective of, like, this is just reality of the human condition in some ways. Let's press on.
I think a lot of people want to dismiss this case and say that this is two celebrities and who cares. People don't always get the nuances of it because they're seeing the headlines.
You had Johnny Depp and all of his fans came out of the woodwork. They were on TikTok. They were on the comment threads.
People believed him. They didn't believe her.
There was absolutely nothing stopping any fan of Amber Heard from getting on social media or expressing their opinion or going to Fairfax and going to that courtroom. It was first come, first serve, and it was open to everyone. In fact, I don't know if there were any such people, but you could have no particular interest in the trial and just want to go anyway. I don't know, just because it seemed like an interesting thing to do that day. I don't know. You were bored and just kind of wanted to go, even though you didn't have any particular interest in the trial. I don't know if that describes any such people. I'm just saying it's possible because it's open to anybody. So if the internet was consumed by Johnny Depp people and the area outside the courtroom was consumed by Johnny Depp people and the area inside the courtroom was consumed by Johnny Depp people, maybe it's because the public at large in evaluating this has kind of come to the conclusion that is confirmed by the evidence that we saw at trial that Johnny Depp has the better end of the case. This is the thing that is also an interesting aspect of like reviewing what it means to be biased. That is interesting. Just because you have a strong opinion doesn't necessarily mean you're biased, right? Lady Justice behind me with her scales has a blindfold on. She is not biased. If the scales are tipping massively for one side versus the other, that doesn't indicate bias. It indicates the weight on the scales is lopsided. That isn't bias. That's just accurate measurement. So strong opinion is not the same thing as bias. So I can't speak to whether or not any of the people at the Johnny Depp trial or in the public or on Twitter were biased or not. But I will take note that just because they have a strong opinion does not mean they were inherently biased. Maybe they were neutral and just looked at it and the evidence was so overwhelming that even with the unbiased blindfold, there was only one conclusion to draw. Well, this is what I aim for on my channel. This is the conclusion I came to. So, you know, I mean, just because I have a strong opinion doesn't indicate bias, my friends. I've certainly cast notes in support of Amber Heard's legal arguments, at least, or her strategic arguments, or her questions where appropriate. So it's just even though Amber Heard is scoring points, even though Amber Heard is providing evidence, even though Amber Heard is winning some parts, right? When we get to the overall calculus, when we get to the overall scales, when we finally do the tally, yeah, not so much. The whatever can be said positive about Amber Heard and her case is somewhat overwhelmed by the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. That's not biased. That's just honest assessment. All right, let's press on.
Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But that's how the social media frenzy works.
We are now in a world where social media is used as a weapon.
When people act like social media is completely irrelevant to the real world, that's plainly incorrect. And there is no denying the impact that social media posts and viral content can have on our real world.
Again, I'm not sure this is necessarily a novel problem. The viral media used to be gossip and person to person and newsies and criers and stuff like that, but like this is maybe a change in scale in terms of the distribution of it, but it's not really a change in kind in a lot of ways. In fact, in a lot of ways, like the old trials of yore were more locally based anyway, so to the extent they consumed a town, they are comparable and sort of their impact on the real world based on gossip, people's opinion, all the rest of it. It's I don't think this is really a novel aspect of criminal justice, civil justice, or anything in a lot of ways.
In 2012, Johnny Depp was arguably one of the biggest stars in the world.
He had been sort of a teen heartthrob in the 80s with 21 Jump Street, and his star really built around these interesting characters that he portrayed on film.
He was mainly known as being Tim Burton's muse.
But then Captain Jack Sparrow with Disney shot him into huge stardom.
Yeah.
Amber Heard is 20 years younger and was building a career and name recognition within Hollywood, but she was certainly nowhere near the star that Johnny Depp was.
We do not
Amber
disagree.
Heard and Johnny Depp met like most celebrity couples do. They met while making a project. They made this movie called The Rum Diary.
Meeting an actress like Amber Heard, she's of another era, you know.
I noticed that everybody smiled when he walked on set, and I thought that's a good sign.
Actually, it wasn't until
Everyone likes Johnny Depp. It's probably a good sign that Johnny Depp is a good person that people like and enjoy to be around. So it makes Johnny Depp attractive. What are you bringing to the party, I suppose, is the relevant question. Apparently nothing but pain, misery, gaslighting, and destruction of everything before you. Yeah.
2011, 2 years later, that they took the relationship to the next level.
Eyes up right here!
The press lapped it up because people love good-looking Hollywood duos together, and these two fit the bill.
I did notice something on your hand. Oh, the other one. Is that an engagement ring?
Now, it has been said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it has been said that ring he bought for Amber Heard as an engagement ring, and she turned down the engagement ring and wanted something else. Now, I mean, if you're proposing to a woman and she says the ring's not good enough, I mean, this is not the most encouraging sign in the start of a relationship. It looked nice to me. I mean, I guess I don't have highfalutin taste or something, but like, if the ring is not enough, it might be okay. All right. Okay.
In 2015, they got married, and they had a big, luxurious wedding on one of Johnny Depp's private islands. Yeah, it was mostly good. I'm trying to think. Until it got bad. Only a year later did Amber Heard file for divorce.
The actor's estranged...
Not encouraging. Not encouraging divorce within a year.
Wife saying she's a victim of domestic abuse. She's seen leaving court with visible bruises, asking a judge for...
This bruise, like, okay, first of all, there's quite good evidence, as we've learned at the trial, that it might be makeup. But second of all, like, even if it's real, I mean, this is the problem. It's one of the many problems, but the problems I have are like these photos. Like, even if that's a real bruise, it just doesn't match the story she's telling, right? It just is. Her story on the stand is so fantastical and so massive compared to what we're seeing. She's telling stories about this guy who has rings on his hand, constantly beating her in Australia, getting on top of her, punching her with the ringed hands as she's lying on a table, choking her, throwing a thing at her, and all the rest of it. And all we see are these minor bruises. This is the thing that continues to just be so massively strange in terms of the strategy, or in terms of her psychology, in terms of something, right? She wins this case if her claims are more mild, right? Because the standard for defamation is for public figures is obviously kind of hard, as we've discussed, right? So if her claim on the stand is, Johnny Depp slapped me, if her claim is Johnny Depp grabbed me by the arm, if her claim is, Johnny Depp psychologically, emotionally used harsh words to frighten me or stuff like that, right? That argument is sellable, given the evidence. The evidence is comparable to those claims. And, Roddenborn, as he was making the argument, and he had a great legal argument that would have matched that. So that's a winnable set of claims. What really screwed Amber Heard is that her claims on the stand are so fantastical relative to the evidence. It's just like, why do you do that? It's like, why is it not just enough for you to claim, oh, he hit me, oh, he slapped me, oh, he grabbed me, oh, he had harsh words on me, which there is some evidence that could be interpreted to support those contentions. But you have to go with these uber fantastical claims. And then you take a look at this photograph and you're like, even if it's what it purports to be, no way. It doesn't make any sense. Why not try to make an argument that actually makes sense? Yeah.
For a restraining order.
She went to the courthouse with a bruise on her face.
Johnny Depp's team said that she was just trying.
Look at that. Look at this little tiny bruise, man. Look at this little tiny bruise on her face, man. I get worse than that just by waking up in the morning. I mean, come on.
Leaving court with visible bruises, asking a judge for a restraining order.
She went to the courthouse with a bruise on her face.
Johnny Depp's team.
Look at this bullshit. Look at this bullshit.
Said that she was just trying to expedite the process by filing this domestic restraining order and that it actually had no merit. It was pretty remarkable the speed at which they actually reached a divorce settlement, and it was for $7 million for Amber Heard.
She had pledged all of that money to two charities, the Children's Hospital
She
Los
sure
Angeles
did.
and the ACLU, and they had a joint statement released at the time that neither party in the case was lying for financial gain.
Well, Johnny Depp might not have been fully aware of the machinations of Amber Heard at the time he made that statement. So I don't know whether he would make that statement today or not. And just because he made that statement in the past doesn't necessarily mean he'd make that statement now. He may have learned some things that could change his view on those perspectives.
Tonight, fallen Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein expected to face charges.
A year after
Putting Harvey, even if you believe the worst of Amber Heard's claims, putting Harvey Weinstein and Johnny Depp in the same sentence is just an unfair comparison. I mean, Harvey Weinstein is a complete total monster. Like, even if you believe everything that Amber Heard says, I mean, Harvey Weinstein is in a league of his own, I think. And there's no evidence to really support that in any contention. So putting their names together is juxtaposing implications that are just not supported by the available evidence. It's just ridiculous.
After their divorce settlement was reached, became the Me Too movement.
Women will be silent no more.
We saw.
I really wish at this point we were able to get that injunction that would make her be silent, because the irony would just be too sweet. Alas, sadly, no. Oh well.
A lot of people who had been living with the secrets and the shame for a very long time, feeling power in numbers.
Amber Heard penned an op.
I spoke up against sexual violence and faced her culture's wrath that has to change by Amber Heard. This is a problem, Amber. This is what we call a problem.
Ad for the Washington Post, in which she talked about being a survivor of domestic violence. She never actually named her ex-husband Johnny Depp in the op-ed.
This is
The
true.
phrase that she used was, "I became a public figure representing domestic abuse."
No, the thing that you didn't highlight was then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. If she said, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, that's a different sentence than 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. Because then the natural implication is, oh, what happened 2 years ago? Oh, yeah, that's right. So she's basically bringing into light, bringing into one's mind by reference, all that garbage, right? So if she just says, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, that is a different legal case than 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. She is the one specifically calling to our mind by reference, Things that happened 2 years ago. What happened 2 years ago? Oh, that's right. The domestic violence restraining order. Oh, that's right. The TRO. Oh, that's right. The accusations. The then 2 years ago is kind of an important aspect of the sentence. It's not a throwaway. At least not in terms of our analysis of it. It's not.
But the timeline insinuates who she's discussing.
Yeah, that's the problem. The timeline insinuates or implies, to use a more legally correct term, but we'll take either one, who she's talking about. Yeah, right.
Johnny Depp filed for defamation in Fairfax County, Virginia.
He argues because of the allegations, his career has suffered.
He sued her for $50 million, and she said, fine, I'll sue you for $100 million.
And she testified that she came up with that number literally by doubling his number. Because there is no way to support her number legally. There is no combination of facts that supports her. Her number is not supportable by law. So even if the jury had awarded her the $100 million, it's not sustainable, right? It would have to be reduced because it cannot be justified under the facts. This is the thing, like, this is where judgments of law come into play versus judgments of fact. Like, we'll give it to the jury to determine what the facts are, and the jury can believe facts or not as they please. The problem is that there's basically no combination of facts the jury could theoretically believe that would get them to $100 million. She wasn't in that class. She wasn't earning that kind of money. She's nowhere close to anything resembling $100 million. Her claim for $100 million is legally unsupportable because it's factually unsupportable. It is not sustainable. Right? If Johnny Depp gets $50 million, that is a sustainable claim. He provided evidence that would support that claim. The jury doesn't necessarily have to believe that evidence, and apparently didn't in full. That's their prerogative. They can believe something other than that, which is, anything that's within the scope of the evidence. So, yeah, sure. They want to say that, not 50 million, but 10 million, okay. There's a logical way to get there. There's some combination of evidence that makes sense to get to the 10 million number or the 50 million number. That's what juries are for. But there's no combination of evidence that gets you to 100 million. Her claim never made any sense from start one.
Amber Heard's counterclaim is that he defamed her through his attorney, Adam Waldman, who accused her of creating an abuse hoax.
I still kind of hope Johnny Depp appeals. His appeal options look a lot better than hers. She has some pure legal arguments that the Supreme Court could theoretically buy, but I don't see. But Johnny Depp has actual case law that seems to suggest he's right. Like, the problem with Amber Heard is she would have to create new law from nothing. Well, from nothing's a little unfair. Other jurisdictions have adopted those legal arguments. Virginia has never really adopted those arguments. So she's not saying it's wrong because the law is that way. She's saying it's wrong because I'd like the law to be that way, which is a valid legal thing to do. But it's not Johnny Depp whose argument is, wait, no, I have case law that seems to suggest I'm right. So I kind of hope he still appeals because I don't think his verdict, there's several different legal arguments that seem supported by the case law that do not allow for his verdict to be sustainable as a matter of law. But we'll see if he wants to appeal or not.
Now, the trial kicks off at 10 a.m. this morning here at the Fairfax County Courthouse.
And the great news is that we're going to watch it all unfold in real time.
That is great news because then we, the members of the public, get to see the exact same evidence the jury did. That's one of the beautiful things. Like, we literally got to sit and see the exact same evidence the jury does. And so we're now in a position to make, and to hear all the legal instructions and hear all the we get to hear literally every word the jury does, right? We can't hear the sidebars, but neither can the jury. So we get to hear everything. We get to hear the legal arguments. We get to hear the legal instructions. We get to hear we get to hear everything. And so that puts us now in the same position as the jury. So we're in a position, if we so are inclined, to assess alongside the jury using the same standards and same evidence as the jury. It makes it now a case that we can review and understand ourselves. This is a good thing.
So who were you here to support?
Johnny Depp.
I've been coming since it started. This is for all my Johnny Depp fans out there. I say hi to him before he pulled in for court.
100 people were allowed in each day, and they were given wristbands to be able to come in.
And they were fighting the battle in the court of public opinion just as much as they were fighting inside the courtroom.
Okay, I mean, fair, fine. But one of the nice things that's informing the court of public opinion is the fact that we can all see what's happening in court. So the court of public opinion at least is in a position to be informed. The degree to which people are informed is a whole nother set of problems, but at least it's available because we can see things. And some of us decided to see things, like myself, for example, who watched basically every moment of the Johnny Depp trial. So, you know, and went into the case blind, not knowing really anything, and also thinking the legal case for Johnny Depp was hard and difficult, which it is, and also, you know, looking at things and scoring points for Amber Heard along the way as a result. So, yeah, we can all assess things.
The Depp Heard case was a civil defamation suit. Civil suit meaning it's for money.
They're both public figures. There is a higher standard of defamation at play. It's about whether you maliciously went after this person with a reckless disregard of the truth.
That's close. It's not exactly maliciously went after. It's actual malice, which isn't the same thing. Yeah, it's a bad term, as I'm sure you guys all know. You don't have to be malicious. You just have to have actual malice. And unfortunately, those are two completely different things. Yeah.
Truth is an absolute defense to a
Truth is an
defamation
absolute
claim.
defense.
The
This is fair.
Was Miss Heard telling the truth when she generally claimed to be a victim of abuse? Having the cameras in the courtroom sensationalizes everything. It becomes a soap opera of sorts. Because
I'm not sure if it sensationalizes it or not. I mean, it literally allows us to see what the jury sees, which is kind of non-sensational. I'm not sure it sensationalizes. It informs. Okay.
Because there were cameras, people could edit videos online into TikToks, into rapid fire Twitter videos, and watch it almost like a gladiator ceremony. It reminded me of the OJ case, you know, in which you had all the world essentially watching what was an extremely disturbing trial. And this was an extremely disturbing trial.
This was a defamation case. And before you knew it, we had all of these elements of domestic violence introduced.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it's a very strange defamation case for sure, because the defamation in question is about domestic abuse and domestic violence. And unlike in a domestic violence case, we don't have a definition of domestic violence, right? If we were inside of a domestic violence case, we would have a legal definition. If we were inside of an assault case or a battery case, we'd have legal definitions of those terms. The problem here is, of course, we're inside a defamation case. We have legal definitions of defamation as to whether it's true or false. But that's to whether that's true or false and to what it means to a person who's listening to it, right? Because the thing is, a person who's listening to it or reading it probably is not reading it or listening to it with the exact legal definition in mind, you know? Probably not. And like even lawyers, even me, probably not, because I wouldn't be reading it that way because I'm assuming they don't mean it that way, because people don't talk that way in newspaper articles. People don't use words with precisions. Sometimes this is very frustrating for me, but you know, we press on. So it's not being used with legal precision. It's being used in some sort of colloquial sense. And then the question is, what is colloquial sense? And that's exactly what the jury is for. What is the person who's reading it understanding it to mean? So now we're in this position where we have to bring in a bunch of stuff to talk about things because, well, we have to give information to the jury as to what a person who's reading this article might understand those words to mean, because we mean them informally. instead of with legal precision. So that's why we're doing that. We're doing it for a reason.
Remember the first time that he physically hit you?
Yes. She was asking him about a tattoo he had altered because it initially said Winona forever. Winona Ryder was famously one of his ex-girlfriends.
And I said, what does it say? And he said it says Wino. I just laughed because I thought he was joking. And slapped me across the face.
But the cameras in the courtroom, I believe, also had an effect on the testimonies themselves, because these are two actors at the end of the day, right?
He said, you think it's so...
I don't know if it would have that much effect on them either way. I mean, either way, presumably, to the extent that they're actors who are acting, they would be acting because they're acting for the jury. I don't know how much the cameras will influence their acting, if that's what they're doing, because their audience is the jury, which is there in any event. So I don't know the degree to which the cameras are influencing their testimony in that sense. But, okay.
So funny. You think it's funny, bitch. You think you're a funny bitch. And he slapped me again.
And the entire argument on Depp's legal team was them saying that she is going to be giving the biggest performance of her life during her testimony.
I just stared at him because I didn't know what else to do. And he slaps me one more time. Hard.
If Ms. Heard could prove that any single event occurred and constituted abuse, then in theory, she should successfully defeat the defamation claim.
Now he's right, but he's right because you have to watch what he says with precision. It's like, if she can prove any single incident occurred that meets the definition of abuse, that's the real key to this question. And that's what we talked about during the trial. And I tried to talk to you guys about during the trial as well. It's like, what is domestic abuse? What is sexual violence, right? These terms are not being used in their legally precise way. I mean, I think we all kind of know that for sure. Of course they're not. I mean, people don't talk that way. People don't write that way unless they're lawyers writing in legal arguments, right? When people use these terms in newspapers, when people use these terms in speech, they're not using them with legal precision. And people are not understanding the terms with legal precision. The terms are being understood based on people's own understandings of what those terms mean. So, as I said during the trial, and it remains true, right? When you're thinking about what does a term like domestic abuse mean, it's open to a potentially wide range of interpretations. And it's open to what the jury thinks a person reading the article would understand the term to be. And we heard testimony about what it means to Amber Heard, or what it meant to Johnny Depp, for example. We heard from Johnny Depp, for example, about how the abuse of his mother, when it was non-physical at times, was as bad or even worse than the physical. So we've got the concept that non-physical abuse can be worse than physical abuse. Words can cut deep. So a jury, therefore, is in a position, but to understand domestic abuse, of course, it's not what Johnny Depp thinks it means. It's not what Amber Heard thinks it means. The question is, what does an ordinary person think it means? Or, as a practical matter, what does the jury as a collective whole thinks it means? Because that's how we determine what a reasonable person would mean. So it's possible the jury could think that, even being punched is not domestic abuse. Even being slapped is not domestic abuse. Even being whatever, right, is not domestic abuse, because it's not enough. It's not enough to constitute domestic abuse as that term would be understood by a person. Maybe an ordinary person hearing domestic abuse doesn't consider one punch to be domestic abuse. I don't know. I bet if you went out and did a survey of people, you get a wide range of opinions on it. Is it single punch domestic abuse? Some people might say yes, and some people might say no. It's open to interpretation. So even if Amber Heard could prove one incident, it doesn't necessarily get her home. On the other hand, she doesn't necessarily have to prove even a single incident of violence, because the question is abuse. So would a person understand, even if a person is never punched, but they're merely insulted, they're merely degraded and lowered and having their just destroyed characterly, emotionally, spiritually, is that enough by itself without any physicality to be domestic abuse? Some people might say yes, and some people might say no, right? So we're in a whole wide world of possibilities. So this is why, for me, the argument like, oh, she can just prove she was hit one time, it proves domestic abuse, doesn't work. Because we're not inside a domestic violence case where we have a definition of domestic abuse and we're saying, one punch is enough because it meets this element of the crime, right? That's not the situation we're in. We're in the situation where where does an ordinary, reasonable, normal person on the street understand this term to mean? And maybe one abuse isn't enough, or one incident is enough, or even 2 incidents, or 5 incidents, or 10 instances. It's like, where does this threshold meet? What does a person understand to mean or not? And then you're just up to a jury question. It's up to you. What do you think it means? Or what do you think a person reading it would think it means? Which is really, what do you think it means? But still. So, like, yeah, this is why, like, it has to not be proving one incident, but proving incident that constitutes abuse. That's the real key. That constitutes abuse is the real key, because it's up to the jury to figure out what does that mean. So I hope this is somewhat helpful to analyzing the legal issues at play.
Now, she took a bit of the kitchen sink approach and put on evidence of various incidents of alleged abuse.
After you said, let's drown her before we burn her, Mr. Depp, you said, I will fuck her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead. Did I read that right?
You certainly did, yes.
A large part of Amber.
Yeah, that doesn't really qualify as domestic abuse or sexual violence, because he wasn't writing or speaking to her. So he was speaking to a third party. So it's not really abuse. It's also, probably not literal. Sometimes people speak hyperbolically.
Heard's case and defense has been communications from Johnny Depp about Amber Heard.
Hopefully that cunt's rotting corpse is decomposing in the fucking trunk of a Honda Civic.
He says that it was an appeal to dark humor in a dark time.
It does seem somewhat extreme. It's not too hard to believe that he's not using it literally and just, fantasizing because he's feeling a little frustrated. That's a reasonable interpretation someone could have.
He did his best to explain his personality and to try to get sympathy from the jury and from the public at large.
Johnny Depp took to the stand and talked about his childhood, and he talked about the abuse that he suffered at the hands of his mother.
He sure did.
She was quite violent, and she was quite cruel.
He would later go on to testify, saying that my father stayed with my mother, and I wanted to do the same.
You start to slowly realize that you are in a relationship with your mother.
The entire reason.
Yeah, I mean, we are emulating that which was modeled to us. And so, for better or worse, we are repeating the mistakes of our parents who made their decisions for what might have been very prudential reasons, but may have led us down the wrong path. I mean, I don't think any of us are really in a position to judge Johnny Depp's father for the decisions he made, who may have made the decisions he made for a whole bunch of very understandable reasons, but it made the perhaps unfortunate side effect of modeling to Johnny Depp what a man is supposed to do, and led him down the wrong path. So, well, there's a whole complicated discussion to be had there about that, so let's press on.
And he's taking his ex-wife to court is to clear his name.
Today is actually the first opportunity that I've been able to speak about this in full for the first time.
He said, I've never had the opportunity to address this. Yes, he did, in the UK.
The UK involved a different party, the Sun. So he didn't really have a full opportunity in the UK to address his issues with Amber Heard, because Amber Heard wasn't on trial, because she wasn't a party. Just noting. Okay, pressing on.
The UK trial was a little different than this trial because Johnny Depp was not suing his ex-wife. Johnny Depp was suing a tabloid newspaper for calling him a quote-unquote wife beater in an article. So Johnny Depp's team had to prove that he was not a wife beater, and he lost the UK trial for defamation.
The judge found that Mr. Depp had committed at least 12 acts of domestic violence, including sexual violence. We were deprived of ever bringing in the fact that there was a judgment against Mr. Depp. Evidence that came in the UK but did not come in the US was a lot of consistent text messages and emails. There's a text message from Stephen Duders, his assistant, to Amber, in which he says, "Johnny's awake now. He doesn't remember anything. When I told him he kicked you, he cried."
Okay, let's just like go through the basics here, okay? So many different things. Different parties means different evidence is relevant or not. This should not be incredibly difficult to understand. Like, if I have a dispute with you and I also have a dispute with someone else, even if those disputes are kind of related in some way, they're different disputes. And there's different evidence that's available, right? So, like, I don't know what the right analogy would be, but, you know, if I did something to two different people, like at a party or something, their factual pictures might be similar, but they might not. Because even though they're at the same party, they might be different times. And even if they're at the same times, there are different things going on with respect to them. And different testimony might be relevant, because different people might have seen different things. Just because there's witnesses to one thing doesn't mean they saw both things, and so forth and so on, right? And the evidentiary picture for different people is going to be different. So even in closely related situations, you have to do the analysis as the evidentiary picture separately, because different evidence is going to be relevant. Here, there's not even that. We have different parties. One is the son, one's the her. And we are dealing with situations with two different, completely different articles, with two different, completely different claims. And here's the real kicker: in two different, completely different legal systems with different rules of evidence and different judges judging it. So, yeah, different evidence was admitted in the UK trial than the US trial. I have not looked in depth in terms of what was admitted or not in the UK trial. So I can't really speak to whether or not those decisions were proper or not. The end decision of the judge seemed very improper, because the judge seemed to credit things that don't seem worthy of credit and made a lot of very questionable factual determinations along the way based on the evidence. But I don't know whether the evidence that was brought in or not was proper or not, because I'm not an expert on such things. I have a knowledge of U.S. law. But to say, oh, this message came in the UK and didn't come here, I mean, different evidentiary rules, different rules of evidence, different law, different case, different people. Okay.
There was emails and text messages throughout, including to her doctor, including to the nurses.
Her statements are self-serving. Her statements are hearsay and lame. Her statements to her nurses and doctors are hearsay. Elaine.
Those were all kept out.
Yes.
The evidence came in that should come in, and the judge was very fair to both sides.
Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard in this case were the parties. They had different disclosure obligations.
Depp's.
Ding, 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 ding. Exactly right. Some of the evidence was not available in the UK trial because she was not a party, so her disclosure obligations as a witness are much different than her obligations as a party. This would be true, incidentally, in the US, by the way. Like, you know, so, yeah.
Team wanted to demonize Amber every way they can, and at the same time try to suppress any of the evidence of Mr. Depp's domestic violence. There were
not to put too fine a point on it, but yes, that's what attorneys do, Elaine. As I think you would know. Yes, Mr. Depp's attorneys did in fact want to keep out any evidence that would be detrimental to their client. You are correct. Amazing. Their ability to do that, of course, is going to be determined by law. But of course, they're going to try to represent their client and their client's interests. And they're going to try to find reasons that under law, evidence that would hurt him will not be admitted against him. As you know, you will also do the exact same thing, incidentally, with respect to your client. So what are we talking about exactly? Johnny Depp's lawyers did their job. Film at 11. Okay.
Therapy notes that go back to 2011 when Amber Heard was first dating Mr. Depp. Detailed notes 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. To see that contemporaneous reporting all those years would have been...
Again, those are notes of a psychiatrist who is writing down what she is being told by Amber. So let's go do our hearsay analysis, right? So we can learn something about law, right? So first problem is that we have the document itself. Can we bring the document itself in? Well, probably. You know, the best exception for bringing the therapist's document in itself is it's a business record. It is a record kept in the ordinary course of business. Or if you don't like that, then it's evidence for the purposes of medical diagnosis. You know, there's a couple different reasons we can get to the document itself. Of course, once we get the document itself, now we have to look at what the document itself talks about, and now we have an additional hearsay problem, right? We have multiple levels of hearsay, which sometimes happens, and we need a hearsay exception for every single layer of hearsay, right? So if we have multiple levels of hearsay, we need to do it for every level. Okay, so now that we've got the document itself in, now can we get the statements from Heard in, right? Because there might be other aspects other than Heard statements, so we could get those in, I'm sure. Things that she observed, things that she saw, things she witnessed, her own, like, diagnoses maybe of whatever. But can we get Heard statements in? No, because we don't have a hearsay exception for that. They're self-serving statements. There's no hearsay exception. So we can't get the notes in because we can't get past it. So Elaine, yeah, it might be very, very helpful to get in all those years of contemporaneous reporting, but they're hearsay. They're statements by the person out of court for the truth of the matter asserted, and there's no hearsay exception that applies. It's not that hard.
Very, very powerful, in my view, to a jury, but none of that came in because the judge determined that those were out-of-court statements.
Any good trial
That they are. It's a problem.
attorney, and I think both sides did this, they're going to develop a theme. From Mr. Depp's perspective, their theme throughout was that I am not the abuser.
Never did I myself reach the point of striking Ms. Heard in any way, nor have I ever struck any woman.
If anything, I'm the one who was abused.
And he goes, why are you accusing me of domestic violence when I should be the one accusing you? Mm-hmm. Yep, the plot thickens. The plot thickens.
A man has to live within a system and a society that does not believe that he can be a victim. Men do not traditionally come forward.
Damn straight. Damn straight. Men are victims of domestic abuse. The degree to which they are and the amount to which they are is somewhat unknown because I think they're underreported. But I think men are victims of domestic abuse. The scale of the abuse may not be as strong in some ways, but the frequency might be as strong or even worse. I mean, we don't know. We don't know the frequency of abuse as between the sexes. We don't know the degree of how bad each incident is within the sexes. We don't really understand because men are unable to come forward and talk about these things in an extremely reduced way. In an extremely reduced way. I understand this to some degree because when I, for example, on my channel, have talked about my own issues with, like, for example, depression or something, right? There are some people who use that as a point of mockery against me, because it's acceptable to mock men when they're talking about their own weaknesses, right? When they're talking about their own problems, there is mockery. And I think, at least, that it's better to talk about this, so I'm willing to come and talk about it, because I think it's important, and talk about issues, right? But it's like, if I'm seeing this in some very, 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 very diminished way, you know, where I, in terms of public figure comparison, are nowhere close to Johnny Depp, in terms of the scale thing, nowhere close. How hard is it for someone like him to come forward and talk about these things and not be completely mocked, disbelieved, ridiculed? There are still people who are basically doing that to Johnny Depp. And it's a true tragedy that it occurs, because I think that, you know, it's like, well, it's got to be okay for people to talk about this, right? I mean, so it's just a disturbing thing, man. It's a disturbing thing.
Miss Heard, in her frustration and in her rage and her anger, she would strike out.
Of all the domestic violence victims, you know, it's 85% women and 15.
I don't know that that's true. I don't know that it's 85% women and 15% men. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that we know that. Hempland, Texas, gave $49.99. Congratulations on 100K, and thank you for your great breakdown of all the legal things. You're very, very welcome, Helpland, and thank you very much to you and everyone else for your super chats. Z Comer, ZZZ for NOK 100, who gave me a nice super chat earlier, and as well as April Villemeyer, who gave $2. I appreciate everyone's support and encouragement of the channel. It's incredibly validating. Thank you.
15% men. I do believe strongly that men are underreported.
And then they basically spent the remainder of the trial just trying to poke as many holes in as many of Miss Heard's stories as they possibly could.
She said that she was going to give all of her divorce proceedings to charity.
You have not donated $7 million of your divorce settlement to charity, right?
I have not been able to fulfill those obligations yet.
You've been able to, you just didn't. You weren't sued for 13 months after you had all the money. You were able to. You had nothing stopping you. You had all the money. For 13 months, you had all the money.
I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
I was not hitting you. I was not punching you. I was hitting you. That's great. Thanks. That's great, Amber.
Another audio clip, she appeared to be mocking him over his claims of being abused by her.
And see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and yes. It's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
I mean, she's not wrong, right? She's not wrong to make that prediction. She's not wrong. The fact it didn't pan out that way is a whole other thing. But, if you're a gambling woman and you're like, roll the dice, baby, can you blame Amber Heard for taking that bet? Can you blame Amber Heard for taking the bet? Go tell the world, Johnny. See how they believe you. See if they come to you. See how that's going to work out for you. You give that a try. She's not wrong, ma'am. She's not wrong. The fact that Johnny Depp was able to win this thing is a bit of a minor miracle in the end.
It was really hard as a viewer who advocates for victims of domestic violence to learn that Heard had used that social bias, that misconception, in a manipulative way.
With all due respect, I wasn't saying it because he's a man. I was saying it because he's a man who beat me up for 5 years.
Bullshit. 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 And even if he was a man who beat you up for 5 years, no matter how we interpret that statement, what were you doing to him, Amber? What were you doing to him? Fucking bullshit. Manitoba said, to be honest, Uncivil Law, in my opinion, Depp does not win if Amber Heard doesn't take the stand. You're quite right, Manitoba. It has been said, and I think it's true, that there are several mistakes in sort of the procedural aspects of this. One of the mistakes was Amber Heard bringing her counterclaim. That was a mistake, because Amber Heard can't really not testify. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, strictly speaking, legally, she doesn't have to testify, but come on. Right? So the fact she brings that counterclaim was a mistake. If she doesn't bring that counterclaim, it's harder to get her on the stand. If she gets on the stand and she makes less outrageous claims, she wins. She only loses because Amber Heard is basically Amber Heard. She only loses because it's like impossible. If I've said this before and I'll say it again, like if given everything I know now, if Johnny Depp walked into my office with this case, I'd still laugh in his face, because there's no way that I'm going to be able to say to him, oh yeah, we definitely have a case, because these series of incredibly improbable and self-defeating things are going to happen. Right? It's like we can't win. We can't win, Johnny, if Amber Heard plays this in any sort of sensible way. Who takes this case on the prediction that Amber Heard is going to just completely and utterly self-destruct in every possible sense? It just doesn't make any sense. The case is ridiculous for Johnny Depp. So yeah, if Amber Heard doesn't testify, if she doesn't make the claims she does, yeah, Johnny Depp loses. This is not really a case where Johnny Depp wins as much as Amber Heard loses. That's really the Johnny Depp legal team did fantastic, don't get me wrong. But it's like, shit, dude. Christ.
Mr. Depp is your victim, isn't he?
No, ma'am.
Depp's legal team brought forth their former couples counselor.
There was violence from Mr. Depp toward Amber, correct?
Yes, you're right. With Ms. Heard, he was triggered, and they engaged in what I saw as mutual abuse.
I will tell you, in all my years, I've never heard the term, ever. When we're talking about domestic violence, we're talking about a primary aggressor. In the context of retaliatory abuse, sometimes it's you beginning that exchange. But until you're in a situation in which someone is hurting you, you don't understand the dynamics that are at play there.
There's a love of my life.
I mean, I'll certainly agree to that much. Unless you're there, you don't really understand the dynamics completely. But that's one of the reasons we have juries and trials. I mean, juries and trials are meant to understand and unravel a lot of complex situations. And okay, yeah.
My life, but he was also this other thing, and that other thing was awful.
Now, again, this evidence is problematic for Amber Heard. Okay, because again, I've never been in a situation with actual domestic violence. I've been in some situations which we've talked about obliquely, but I've never been in a situation with domestic violence. But I've been in some situations with some toxicity, let's say. But it seems to me that if Amber Heard were a victim of domestic violence, if she were a person who has been hit and choked and has cell phones thrown at her and all the rest of it, it seems to me that if her significant other comes in and starts beating up cabinets and beating up things, I would think her reaction might be, oh geez, look, he's angry, he's violent, I'm next. She might be experiencing some fear and apprehension in that moment of, it's going to be me next, because he's in a violent, aggressive mood, and I'm here, so probably is coming my way. I would think her reaction would be one of self-preservation, anxiety, fear, trepidation. Maybe she would be running away, or maybe she'd be trying to soothe him, or maybe she'd be trying to talk really softly to him, or maybe she'd be trying to like bring him things, or try to like calm him down or appease him in some way. You would imagine that she would be taking some kind of steps, either in self-preservation or in trying to soothe him so that she won't be the victim. Amber Heard's reaction to Johnny Depp's actions do not seem to conform to any of those possible options.
Members of the public look at recordings as being a little bit underhanded.
You got this going? Oh, really?
It just goes to the overarching question.
He just discovered your secret recording that you're making of him. He's a violent, aggressive domestic abuser. But he doesn't in that moment then hit you, having just discovered that you're surreptitiously recording him. Again, can't speak to the total psychology of domestic abusers, but I would think that, you know, your garden variety domestic abuser who's already in a, let's say, a physically aggressive mood, having discovered the secret recording of you, might then choose to extol some of this ongoing frivolity in your direction rather than merely take the videotape and go to an adjacent room. That doesn't quite seem like in the total set of possible actions by a domestic abuser. This doesn't strike me as being in the range of that panoply.
Question of which party had the jurors' trust.
Amber Heard has submitted quite a few photos into evidence of her injured.
Not really buying that this picture, even if it accurately reflects an injury, reflects anything resembling the story Amber Heard told. This looks like, I don't even know what this looks like. It doesn't look like anything to me. If I saw a woman with this, I'm not 100% sure I'd even notice. And if I did, I'd probably think to myself, some sort of skin issue rather than, you know, violent beating. I don't know that I noticed this, and I don't know that I would be concerned about her physical well-being on this image.
With respect to photos of Miss Heard, I think that the jury...
Yeah, again,
injured.
With respect to photos of Miss Heard...
Again, I would think maybe this is a birthmark, or maybe this is like a lot of things. I wouldn't think to myself, oh geez, you've been violently beaten. This is not the first thought going through my mind.
I think that the jury most likely found that...
I'm looking right at this photograph, and I, honest to God, even looking at it, like, oh, the thing on her lip? I mean, come on.
Testimony of the gentleman from TMZ.
Again, this little bruise on her arm, really? I've gotten worse than that from, I don't even know where they came from. So I've woke up with bruises like this, and I wasn't 100% sure how they occurred. Yeah.
To be very compelling.
Ms. Heard was filing a restraining order at a courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. So I dispatched camera people to that location. We would only ever send people there if we had been tipped off.
And the TMZ former employee effectively said that that was staged. When jurors see that, they're going to lose a lot of faith in anything else that's presented visually or otherwise.
There does seem to be some evidence supporting the proposition that photo was staged. He is an eyewitness that could lead a jury to draw those kinds of conclusions. Yes. There is some issues. Yeah. many problems. Let's listen to some more.
I did not call TMZ or any other news source or paparazzi source. No one.
Unfortunately for Ms. Heard's camp, some of the more graphic, significant events were the ones that I think were most hotly contested.
The night in Australia, there's still so many questions about this fight, which, allegedly led to Johnny Depp's fingertip being severed. He alleges that she threw 2 vodka bottles at him.
It made contact and shattered everywhere. And then I looked down and realized that the tip of my finger had been severed.
Amber Heard has said on the stand she doesn't have a clear recollection of how things unfolded, but she has alleged that he sexually assaulted her with a bottle.
I felt this pressure. On my pubic bone. He said he was punching me.
And the next day, I went on the, Jim Gordon show? And even though I had just been, with no doctors or anything, this is what we literally call incredible, Amber. No.
I just saw his arm. I could feel his arm moving.
There were a couple of points in the trial that should have never come out so publicly.
I didn't know if the bottle
Why not?
that he had inside me was broken.
Why not? Why shouldn't they have come out publicly? Why not? Because, are you suggesting because she should never have to be questioned about those things? That she should never have to answer for those things? Those things are things that, just hashtag me too. A woman should never be questioned about. Is that the reason they should have not come out at trial? Because they are beyond our ability to try? They are beyond our ability to question. Is that the reason they should never come out? So we have no choice but to accept them because they literally are beyond our ability to question? Is that what we're doing?
I didn't know if he would know if it was broken or not, and I just remember thinking, please, God, please, I hope it's not broken.
Survivors have reached out. They have been triggered. I know that myself, I got triggered.
My back was towards you, but you hit me in the face.
Ew, this is so cringe. Guilty.
A lot of times jurors, whether male or female jurors, they don't want to see a woman cry. They don't find it believable.
Here she is being forced to recount.
On this particular occasion, I'd have to agree. I did not find her crying to be believable. That would be an accurate assessment. You got me on that one.
Count all these things, and what do they say? Oh, she.
What is this? What is this bullshit?
Here she is being forced to recount all these things, and what do they say? Oh, she cried. What's wrong with these people?
She didn't cry. She lied. It seems like Elaine and the other woman are literally going for the proposition that if a woman makes these claims, they are literally untestable. They should never come out at trial because they are literally untestable. They are literally unquestionable. They cannot be prodded or questioned within the jury system or any other system, presumably, because, I don't know, who are we to challenge their tears? Okay.
Would you please stand and face the jury?
Even though past contentious court cases have been televised, there hasn't been TikTok and there wasn't Twitter to cover these trials in real time. That really
there was tabloids and newspapers and television and all the rest of it. And gossip and word of mouth. And I mean, I was there for the O.J. Simpson trial. I mean, I was in high school, but still, okay.
changed the course of this trial.
The jurors were not sequestered. The judge would instruct them each night not to do any additional research.
This is a long proceeding spanning 2 months. I just think it's unrealistic to think that the jurors stayed off of social media.
And once you're on them, you can't avoid it.
This monster
You can. It would be difficult, but you could.
of algorithms at play, where even if you've never followed Amber Heard or Johnny Depp, you were inundated on your social media feeds with aspects of this trial.
And so the way that people got so much of the action from the courtroom was through these videos on social media platforms.
TikTok just went crazy. The ability to do short films mocking someone or giving your opinion about something is what TikTok is, and they certainly did.
Heaven forbid people give opinion. First Amendment, film at 11.
Leaned back and headbutted me square in the nose.
The breadth and depth of what we've seen, and particularly the attacks and abuse aimed at Ms. Heard, is something remarkable.
We don't believe her. We don't believe her. We think she's lying.
Can you imagine being a survivor and seeing the mockery that she's endured?
It's a good thing that she's not a survivor who has to endure the mockery.
If you actually watched it live on YouTube, there's a live feed, and every comment I saw while I was watching it for 6 weeks were pro-Depp.
If you want to go viral, you're going to...
But what is that telling you? What is that telling you that every comment is pro-Depp? The Amber Heard people can have their own entire YouTube channels for that matter. There's nothing stopping them. They can have YouTube channels and they can go into places and they can comment and they can do anything. They can do anything. They can have their own TikToks. They can have their own YouTubes. They can do anything. So what's the problem? The problem is that, the consensus is not so much. The consensus from people who are sitting there watching it every day, as I was sitting there every day with a team of lawyers watching it every day, and I think everyone will agree that I was pretty fair, to the point where people were like giving me a hard time because I was pro Amber or whatever, which, at least I wasn't, but I was definitely biased against Johnny Depp's case. Again, not because of him. My bias was legal in its nature, right? My bias had nothing to do with the parties, right? That's what I mean by unbiased, right? When I say unbiased, I mean something very particular. I mean that I'm unbiased by the parties. I'm unbiased by their things. I'm biased by the law, and I know how hard it is for defamation for public figure, and I know what the statements are, at least in square zero, and I'm sort of like at square zero, I'm where I sort of said that I am now if Johnny Depp came into my came into my office now. I'm like, it's impossible. It can't work, right? There's just too many avenues for Amber Heard to win. It can't work. There's no way. It can't be done. Right? It's just, there's just too remote an outcome. So that bias, as it were, is not due to Johnny Depp or not due to Amber Heard. It's due to my knowledge of the law and knowledge of sort of like reading the statements and like thinking it through. And I'm like, it's just not possible. And so like, and I'm assessing it. And, and maybe scoring things in ways that people don't like, but I'm just looking at it. I'm like, oh yeah. And then where it all collapsed for me was day 2 of Amber Heard's testimony, because on day 2 of Amber Heard's testimony, what she was saying was so far juxtaposed from what we were seeing in terms of the evidence that it was just completely unsustainable. And there was just like, okay, I can't make this work anymore. And so it's just like, I can't make this work. I know coming into this, it's really, really difficult. I understand. And I just can't make this work anymore. So Johnny Depp has to win. Right. But this is what it is. It's just basically looking at the evidence and assessing it in view of the law and in view of the difficulties and public figure and all the rest of it. But like, it's just the way it is.
To want to talk about the events in favor of Johnny Depp.
I really think it has a lot to do with Johnny Depp wanting the cameras to be in the room in the first place. I think he was aware of the public's perception of him.
Johnny Depp was a star. He was a lot of people's first crush.
And Johnny Depp's okay. I mean, you know, I'm glad that they had the cameras in the courtroom because it allowed me to assess the evidence and testimony and weigh it. So, I mean, I don't know if Johnny Depp thought his personality was going to win the day. What won the day for me was, you know, the evidentiary picture.
And so there is a parasocial attachment that adds another layer of investment.
93% of the accounts posting have been in favor of Johnny Depp.
What was I telling you?
I did not expect for my TikToks to get over 6 million views. It's been great to see that so many people are on his side and so many people agree with me and think that, you know, she is a liar and a bad actress.
You also had segments of YouTube that had never covered anything even close to this trial, all of a sudden pivoting, people going from fewer than 100,000 subscribers to over 500,000 subscribers in a matter of weeks.
I really don't know anything about this.
In any really big case, you'll see a lot of fascinating kind of banding together of people. There are people who love Johnny Depp and genuinely adore him and think that he is a great man and are very worried about him.
You also have men's rights factions of the internet contributing to this conversation, along with people who love true crime.
You have domestic abuse survivors who don't feel like Amber Heard was a reflection of them.
Yeah, we heard quite a lot from a lot of those domestic abuse survivors. I have to tell you, on Legal Bites channel, we had a lot of people who said we are domestic violence supporters, and I don't know if any of them said, and I believe Amber Heard. I'm pretty sure like all of them, or substantially all of them, said, I believe Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is pissing me off. So, yeah. And in addition to the communities of the whatever, you also had the lawyers who were interested in assessing it, and the lawyers are like,
But what are your thoughts on Amber Heard?
I myself am a survivor of domestic abuse, and I felt like I could see right through when she was on the stand and the things she would say, that manipulation that they do.
I'd like to remind us all that all victims are not the same. Ms. Heard is what we would call the imperfect victim.
No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. She is not the imperfect victim. She is not a victim. She is a perpetrator who has clothed herself in victimhood and clothed herself in Me Too, and you're letting her get away with it. And it's frustrating and annoying because at this point, the evidence is out. Like, if you want to give her the benefit of the doubt, I totally get it. But we listened, we considered, we thought. And at this point, you want to call her an imperfect victim. No.
Society, we have a stereotype of what a victim of domestic violence looks like.
You weren't.
I expect the photographs of her to reflect what she says happened when those photographs were taken in hyper close proximity. Yeah, I expect their evidence to reflect reality of what they're saying.
Scared of him at all, were you?
This is a man who tried to kill me. Of course it's scary.
They usually have the battered bruises.
There aren't any medical records reflecting that you sought medical treatment for any of these injuries, are there?
I did not seek medical treatment after Australia, no.
Not for the rape?
No, I did not want to tell anyone.
It is.
If you were just penetrated with a glass bottle, and also, incidentally, like as we mentioned, the next day you went on Jim Gordon with this violent assault where you're thrown on the table and beaten and all the rest of it. And there's no makeup in the world that can cover all that, man. No.
A certain amount of crime.
I do like this, yeah. Light giver, take one look at the photo of Rihanna and tell me Amber was abused. Yeah, a little bit. Those photos do, in juxtaposition, suggest different things between them, yes.
But not too much. A certain amount of anger, but not too much.
Victims and survivors of domestic violence each are different, and they have different experiences. There is no perfect victim.
She's not a victim.
If you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen. If you did take pictures, they're fake.
There does seem to be some evidence to support they're fake. Like an attorney can't just get up and say the photos are fake. They have to have evidence to say that, right? Attorneys can't just say shit. They have to have evidence to support what they say, right? I can't get up and just say, oh, the photos are fake without something to support that proposition. And we have something to support those propositions because we have different photos that have been edited for various purposes and manipulated, and also might themselves, even when accurate, reflect fakery. For example, the photographs that were taken of her as she was exiting the courthouse in California for the temporary restraining order, the domestic restraining order, right? Those photographs are real, but they reflect fakery. Photographs, incidentally, don't always reflect reality. You can have a photograph that doesn't reflect reality. It's not for nothing that there is a question attorneys ask on the stand, or ask you when you're on the stand, of like, does this photo accurately reflect the event? Because if it doesn't, we can't use the photograph. And it's possible the photograph doesn't represent the event for any number of reasons. So, like, yes, it has to be a true and accurate reflection. If it's not a true and accurate reflection, then it's not good evidence. So, yeah. Like giver, $20. When she said Johnny continually punched her in the face, she would have split open wide from his rings and required stitches. One would imagine, like giver, there are many, many problems. Yes. Thank you for your super chat. It is, of course, appreciated. Let's listen to some more.
If you didn't tell your friends, you're lying. And if you did tell your friends, they're part of the hoax.
The litigants each really tapped in pretty explicitly to the larger social media and the cultural narratives that have been surrounding the case.
No woman ever before Amber Heard ever claimed that Mr. Depp raised a hand to her. This is Me Too without any Me Too.
There is some of that too. That is a problem.
Verdict is in. They're going to read it at 3 o'clock.
All right.
We have a verdict?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Jurors deliberated 13 hours. Verdict delayed. He won. Okay. That's going to be an interesting fallout for a lot of domestic abuse survivors.
I think from Mr. Depp's perspective...
Is it? Is it going to be an interesting fallout for domestic violence survivors? If domestic violence survivors require us to believe lies from liars who lie, I think it is a very bad idea to suggest that domestic violence survivors are weak unto themselves, or their case is weak, or weak in either individually or in the collective, that we can't expose the lies. Basically, you're implying that domestic violence survivors are weak, or their cases are weak, and any light that exposes even blatant falsehood will weaken them. I don't know that's the position you really want to take there. I think that domestic violence survivors are believed when they're believable, and their evidence is believable, and not when not. And also there is a presumption of innocence. Less so, obviously, in a civil case, but even in a civil case, right? It's still a presumption that you didn't do the thing. The standard's a lot lower in a civil case, but still. Like, so yeah, I mean, we are going to default to believing the accused because that's what we're supposed to do. I don't know that you want to get into the position that domestic violence cases are so weak or their people are so weak that, you know, that can't be overcome. I think that's a strange posture.
His legal team put on an incredible case and pulled a rabbit out of a hat. It's
a little bit, although
from the jury's verdict,
they definitely did a lot of things to pull the rabbit out of the hat, but Amber was the rabbit man, and she put herself right into that fucking hat, dude. It's fucking crap. It's like, you know, shit, dude.
I didn't believe anything she said.
The jury awarded Johnny Depp $10 million in compensatory damages and $5 million in punitive. So, but then they also awarded $2 million to Amber Heard in compensatory damages. So then, if the counterclaim says that she never committed an abuse hoax, then I don't understand how you could have both things be true.
I do. I don't know that Adam Waldman's statements being false gets you where you want to be, though, for a whole number of reasons, right? Adam Waldman's statement was very, very specific, hyper-specific, unfortunately. So it's not hard to believe that it's false for any number of very specific reasons, right? So falsity gets you part of the way to there, but not all the way, right? So, like, it's not hard to justify those two things. You could believe Adam Waldman's statement is wrong because they didn't coordinate their stories in response to, like, or they didn't spill the wine, or like any number of other specific things. They're very easy to, like, justify. Would Heard's photos be admitted in a criminal proceeding? I can't think of any reason why not off the top of my head. The photographs are, if they're accurate, if they're true and accurate representations, sure, why not? There's no particular reason they wouldn't be admitted in a criminal proceeding. I mean, they could be attacked in a criminal proceeding for the same reasons that you'd attack them in a civil proceeding, but yeah, the idea that they'd be admitted in the first place, sure. Yeah, photographs get admitted all the time in criminal proceedings. Anyways, going back to this thing with the Waldman, yeah, I mean, the idea it's false gets you part of the way. There are still a lot of grounds on which Johnny Depp could appeal if he were so inclined. That Adam Waldman was not, in fact, his agent. That he can't be his agent because he was a independent contractor rather than an employee, which precludes the concept of agency. That the statements, while false, are not sufficiently false as compared to reality to have enough daylight to be defamable. That, you know, that, and there was like 2 or 3 other grounds I found that are possible that I can't remember right now, but I found like 5 or 6 grounds basically on law to attack them. But finding they're false is not your problem. That's not your immediate issue. All right, let's press on.
I have been glued to the TV for the last 6 weeks, so it will be nice to get my life back, but I am probably even happier just knowing that justice was served.
What was his reaction in the moment?
I think just an overwhelming sense of relief.
Social media certainly took off in a way that we've seen high-profile trials before, but do you believe the jurors saw any of that, were swayed by any of that?
No, I don't think there's any reason to believe that the jurors violated their oath. And that suggestion was disappointing to hear.
I don't know how they can possibly come to that conclusion. You could not escape it.
Do you see?
It's presumed by law is how you come to that conclusion. It's really easy. If you're wondering how they come to that conclusion, it's presumed by law. So that solves that problem real fast.
See any larger message beyond the case you tried?
No, I mean, frankly, we don't. We're here to talk about the case that we tried, right? We encourage all victims to come forward, have their day in court, which is exactly what happened in this case.
When we heard the verdict, we were very disappointed. We have struggled for years to ensure that survivors' voices are heard.
Then why aren't you trying to get Johnny Depp's voice heard? If you are struggling to get survivors' voices heard, and you acknowledge that men in particular's voices are underheard, why aren't you struggling to get Johnny Depp's voice heard, since he's a survivor? He's a survivor. Why don't you believe his claims? Why do you automatically believe Amber Heard's claims and not automatically believe Johnny Depp's claims? Which are a little bit difficult to believe both automatically at the same time, which is kind of the point. You have a conflict. You want to automatically believe everyone. You have a conflict between two people and you're defaulting to the woman. Why? Particularly at this point, why? After everything is said and done, why? Other than sex, other than the fact it's a man. If you wanted to default to believing Amber Heard going into this, I get it. I get it. But at this point, if you are saying to yourself, Amber Heard is the victim, and Johnny Depp is not the victim of domestic violence, I don't know what to tell you, man. The evidence does not support that contention. The evidence overwhelmingly supports that Amber Heard was physically abusive, mentally abusive, psychologically abusive, manipulative, and all the rest of it. Stephanie, are you ready to go live in 7 minutes? By the way, because I'm trying to end the stream exactly on time because I'm watching the clock. I just want to know if you're ready to go, so that I can end the stream appropriately. Anyways, this is infuriating on every possible level. So yeah.
Turned out that the jury.
You don't have to postpone for me, Stephanie. I as you can see, I have 3 minutes left in this video. I've been watching the clock. I've been trying to time this to hit the mark. So you don't have to postpone for me. If you're ready to go, you're ready to go. I'll hit it.
Believed that it was defamation, which is, by the way, a control tactic by a lot of abusive persons in order to maintain control. Defamation cases will be exerted more often. It won't be pretty.
There will be plenty of plaintiffs who will file and pursue claims that may not be winning claims, but they'll take that chance.
So if we imagine a college student who is a victim of sexual assault who wants to tell her story, the worry is that we might need to start counseling victims that telling their stories can have a very significant financial price.
What happens if I get ambered?
What happens if I get ambered? Well, this is not the sense in which you meant the question, but it's the sense in which I choose to answer the question. If you get ambered, you're Johnny Depp. If your woman is beating you, get help, tell your story, come forward. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. The people who will mock you and ridicule you for you because you're a man and you're reflecting weakness are beneath you. If you've been ambered, if you're a man who's a victim of domestic violence, come forward and tell your story. It will be hard. The support networks are not there for men. It will be hard, but you will, by your actions, help create a society in which it will be easier for those who follow you. It's always hard for the first people who have to go through the wall. It's going to be hard for you, but it's worth it and it's necessary. So if you've been ambered, please tell someone, get help, bring attention to it, And if people are telling lies about you, if people are telling lies about you being a victim, if people are telling lies about you and they're telling lies about you being an abuser, stand up for yourself. Don't let woman or a man, for that matter, run roughshod over you because they're a victim and you need to stand up for yourself and tell the truth. And if women are making up stories, you need to tell the truth. If they're not, the women need to come forward. If men are making up stories, you need to come forward. And if not, like, either way, like, let's treat this. How about we do this? How about we treat this in a sex neutral way where we treat both men and women as worthy of protection from violence and abuse? How about that as a concept? That sounds good. Let's do that.
Because we're beginning to hear those terms, or we heard the term that Friday, I will Depp you.
We are already seeing other celebrities who are accused of sexual violence filing defamation.
Now, I will take note here that I have not learned very much about the Marilyn Manson case yet. Andrea Burkhart, that's the one I was going for. Andrea Burkhart, who is also in the greater LawTube Mayu, has done a good video on the Marilyn Manson thing. So if you're interested in learning more about the Marilyn Manson thing, I'd recommend Andrea Burkhart's video on it. I still don't really have a good conception of it myself, but it's definitely something I'll talk about more as we get more into it. But yeah, it seems like Marilyn Manson may also have valid claims in his situation. So maybe this is a turning point where men will be able to be like, yeah, we've been made lies of her and we're not willing to stand up for it anymore. Katrina gave $9.99. Thank you very much for your super chat, by the way.
Suits against their accusers.
The Me Too movement at its core was about victims coming forward and telling their stories.
How about men? How about men who are victims coming forward and telling their stories? How about them? Colonel Klutz had some videos on it as well. Colonel Klutz kicks ass as well. Her videos are good stuff. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so check out Colonel Klutz as well. Kurtz, man, I'm sorry, Klutz. That was a misspeak. I apologize. I apologize so much. That was a misspeak on my part. I'm so sorry. Colonel Kurtz. Yes, check out her as well. They've both done good work on this subject. I'm going to press on before I embarrass myself some more.
I do wonder whether there will be that power in numbers again, whether people will be willing to go forward knowing they could get sued for defamation.
Don't tell lies.
To recall a case like this where you had a celebrity who had fallen from grace use a public proceeding in a court trial to rehabilitate that image. And that's what he did. And winning was a welcomed byproduct.
I think looking back, people are going to think of this as the TikTok trial, the social media trial, the fan trial, because his fans really came out in such full force and really having fun.
Where were her fans? Where were her supporters? Where were her people? Why didn't they show up? Why, or even more the point, this was such a great moment by Camille Vasquez because it's something I didn't notice. In the trial itself, why did she have no one come and talk in person for her that wasn't paid or a relative? Johnny Depp had people come and talk in person for him who weren't paid, weren't experts, weren't family. Why did Amber Heard not have a single person who was there, who was willing to come in person, who wasn't being paid to testify for a friend? Maybe she has no friends. Maybe she's not a good person. Yeah. Yeah.
With what were some pretty horrific claims.
This trial really demonstrates the power of the internet and how campaigns for public opinion can shape real-world effects. So whether you're in politics, media, entertainment, this presents itself as a playbook.
You know, I saw, oh, is Me Too over? And you darn tootin' it's not. How do
Excellent. It shouldn't be. People who are victims should come forward, including men, and they should be believed and not automatically believe the woman who, especially, yeah, I mean, we'll press on.
we deal with something like what just happened? She wrote an op-ed about her domestic violence.
She wrote an op-ed about lies.
Social media were weaponized against her. So what does that mean to someone else who may want to talk about this?
Don't lie. That's what it means. Don't lie. Don't lie. Don't make up things. Don't lie. Don't make false claims. Don't lie. That would be the what it means. Stop it. Stop lying.
It's going to be tough. We can do it. I never say no.
Say no to lies. That was an interesting thing from NBC News. But seeing as we have 20 minutes because Stephanie rescheduled her stream, we're going to cover some of this. We are not going to cover all this. This will be a sneak preview. This will definitely be a stream unto itself, and we will definitely have to restart from square one. But we'll do a sneak preview for you. Because someone wrote, what should we call this? I guess we'll call this... Is this an op-ed? I don't even know what this is. What I do know is it's 26 pages of, like, normal type on a page long. It's 26 pages of this. Holy shit. So this is a very thorough academic article, op-ed thing that I saw from Julie Owens, Violence Against Women Expert Consultant, entitled Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, Who is the Victim? It's 26 pages long. Let's give a sneak preview. I could write a book about what I've learned by observing parts of the ongoing Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard lawsuit. You could write a book, you did. And exploring their personal histories. Unfortunately, I'm Ginger, yes. Unfortunately, at the moment, I don't have time to write a book or even an article for publication. Yes, you do. You wrote this thing. That would include proper citations and footnotes and meet the proper parameters and formatting requirements. However, I've been asked to repeatedly share my opinion on the matter. For those people, I've compiled what I've learned and my conclusion about which one, if either, is most likely the predominant aggressor. I'll give you a clue. She doesn't think it's Amber. This, of course, is what the jury will have to decide. This was written back in May, as you can see, but still. I've worked many times as an expert witness in domestic violence trials, including criminal, civil, and immigration trials, some of which were lawsuits, but I want to be clear that I haven't been hired to form an expert opinion about this. As the saying goes, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm compiling the facts for myself so I can form an opinion. Oh joy. Let's see how we do. The truth is, I was actively trying to avoid getting wrapped up in the trial because of a looming project deadline. In the absence of domestic violence expert witnesses in court and misinformation in the media, though, it seemed important to those with expertise to look to the fact. Oh joy, share us your expertise. This will be good. My interest peaked when I began seeing so many differing opinions on social media, most of them in support of Johnny Depp, by people insisting Amber Heard was a conniving, lying abuser. This is largely the conclusion I've drawn as well. These weren't just coming from men. Indeed, The majority were comments from older women, some of whom were doing anti-domestic violence work, including some survivors. I got real curious. That's okay. I'm still going to manage to twist all this to support my narrative despite all this evidence to the contrary. Exciting. I've never heard or seen any actual evidence that Depp was abusive, but I knew Heard had once implied he was. The most common abuse scenario in a heterosexual relationship is coercive controlling, domestic violence, or battering perpetrated by male against female. Thank you, Pam, for your nice comment there. Appreciate the support. It's nice to be over 100,000 again. I knew this. I knew that the problems would subsist. It's like the haters have got nothing. Haters have got nothing, man. It's like it's not a problem. It's fine. We're growing. We're growing. We're evolving. Oh, incidentally, if you are looking forward to something, I got an email today. And my YouTube play button will be arriving on Wednesday. I know, I'm excited. I'm really excited about it. I am super, super excited. So I guess we will do the very, very, very cliche thing of doing an unboxing, because I don't know, every other creator on the face of God's green earth has done one, and who am I to rebut the trend? And then my counter right in the space right here that is currently blank, the space right here that's currently blank behind my head, this space will soon be occupied by a YouTube play button. I am super excited. Fun. The haters can choke on that for a while. Okay. Let's see, where were we in this bullshit? Okay. When this happens, the victim might also strike out in acts of self-defense or resistive violence. But false accusations of abuse, while very rare, do occur, so Heard could be lying. Given conflicting opinions and growing controversy, I have to consider that possibility. Yeah, very rare is, I don't know how we're defining very rare. I seem to vaguely remember, I don't remember who did the statistics, if it was the FBI or someone, but I seem to vaguely recall that there was an estimate that somewhere between 2 to 7%, which by the way, the average of that is 5%, but somewhere between 2 to 7% of claims are fabricated. And then, of course, some of them are just exaggerated beyond that, but 2 to 7% are just flat out lies. So if you average that to 5%, that's 1 out of 20. And then, of course, of the other ones, then many of them would be exaggerated to the point of, like, you know, absurdity compared to the original. So, you know, 1 out of 20 is like, you know, not nothing. So rare in Heard's case, the odds were 1. That's right. The probability was just simply 1. That's right. Okay. If this wasn't the typical male batterer or female victim scenario, and abuse had occurred without coercive controlling behavior being exercised by one partner over the other, it was Amber, though. It was probably situational violence, not domestic violence. These toxic relationships involve equally dysfunctional partners who may fight without using coercive control. Mutual abuse is different. The partners in mutually abusive relationships have equal power and privilege. Neither dominates the other. When 2 famous, wealthy, privileged celebrities, this was a possible but unlikely explanation. The final possibility was domestic violence or battering with a female abuser and male victim. Now, please take note, this is the final possibility. This is the last thing I'm going to consider. Literally. This is the last thing I'm going to consider. It's the final thing. If everything else fails, then sure, maybe it's the female thing, right? This would mean Heard had been the dominant partner, wielding more power and control and privilege than Johnny Depp, who was afraid of her. This doesn't seem very likely either, but you never know. I mean, why not? The nature of power and control and privilege is dynamic, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And she could absolutely have more power in their relationship. Abusers are slick regardless of gender and almost always play the victim. This seemed to be most people's belief. I choose to always start believing. Yeah, but always start believing whom is the problem, right? You can choose to always start believing, that's fine, but who do you choose to always start believing? Because if you always start believing, you have to believe them both, and their stories are in conflict. So always start believing doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get you anywhere because it doesn't tell you how to resolve the conflict, right? When someone says they're abused, I assume they're telling the truth. Then do you assume that if Johnny Depp is well? I bet you don't. That's nearly always the case. I know I can always back my way out of the stance if evidence suggests otherwise. Then why don't you believe Johnny Depp when he says he's the victim of abuse? I know the answer to the question, by the way. It's in your phrasing, because your first premise is man beats woman. Then your second premise is some sort of mutuality situation. Then your third and final premise is woman beats man. So why do you not believe him? Because it doesn't fit your own hierarchy that you yourself set out. Congratulations. Without personally observing and Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I've tried to figure out which of them was most likely to be the victim. Why not believe? What happened to believing them both? I used the cumulative knowledge gained over 30 plus years of studying, researching, and working with anti-domestic violence field. This includes interacting with thousands of victims and survivors in various settings, including residential subsistence use treatment, various crisis shelters, transitional shelters, inpatient hospital psychiatric units, regional mental health authority, National Center for PTSD, and director for a state agency overseeing victim service agencies. That doesn't do anything to help correct your bias that the women are the ones being abused as a default presumption. Which maybe that should be the default presumption, but still, it's your default presumption. So let's just talk about what we're talking about. I also drew on knowledge gained in partnerships with batterer intervention organizations and law enforcement entities, projects done with government agencies, involvement with many different organizations and experts, hundreds of conferences and collaborative committees on which I serve. They all provide me with deeper insight, as did close long-time relationships with a number of accomplished and well-known mentors and researchers in the field, including some who were pioneers and leaders in the early days of the anti-domestic violence movement. Well, apparently we're just king shit over here, and we want to make sure everyone knows it. This is not an exhaustive overview of the Depp-Heard relationship by any means. I don't know, it's pretty exhaustive. It's 26 pages. Fuck. It's just a matter of days to collect information and study publicly available documents. I'm sure there's plenty of important information not included, and accuracies that are. With no staff to help me collect information and verify stories, I just had to do my best. I read articles and watch some trial footage and compile notes. I don't know if everything written is true or not. It's hard to know. I can understand why people are really confused. I just know I shared what appeared to be accurate information that's published in the media. Well, that's a fun little tease for a future stream for sure. So we will definitely have to do that for sure. And like Ever points out, Ricardo Ospina says people were willing to be sued to testify for Johnny. Pog. Yeah, that's like how far they're willing to go out of their way for Johnny. They're willing to potentially be sued. And like Ever gets $5 Canadian, only 6 days left to appeal. I know. We're going to see this for sure. All right. So I want to wrap this stream up because I want to, okay, so first of all, I would like to kindly direct everyone's attention to the pinned comment in the chat, the after party link. If you click this link, this will take you to another stream, which is being hosted by the lovely creator Stephanie, a Lockificent Layer. Stephanie would appreciate your support and your watch. She has 472 subs, and so we'd like to help get her to grow and we also like to encourage her to produce more content. She's a new creator, and so she is learning how to create, which, you know, if we go watch my earlier work, holy shit, you know, learning how to create and learning how to do this takes time. But we are supporting her. She's a woman who is a gun expert and talks about gun issues from a female perspective as it relates to female specific concerns. She's well trained, well qualified, and if I could encourage you to click the link that's in the pinned comment and go over there, and if you see the red subscribe button, click that red subscribe button today. The red subscribe button feels angry, and you can help fix the anger by clicking it and helping it become a nice gray subscribe button. So please go do those things as well, and please go check that out and support her so that she will be a growing creator. I would appreciate it as well. Congratulations on the 100,000 subs. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, I really appreciate it. We're growing. We're developing. Things are great. Can I not rate her? Unfortunately, I can't. Because she's below 1,000 subs, I cannot rate her. YouTube is set up that way. So I had to look into it because it kept denying me. So unfortunately, I can't just do the raid. So I have to ask you to actually manually click it. So, because I tried to set it up, but she doesn't have enough subs for a raid, so we have to do it the hard way. So, we're going to do it the hard way. I know, it's disappointing. It's not my choice. Good luck with the Texas bar, thank you. I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, but it's not my choice. It's YouTube. What do you want from me? It's just the way it is. And so I can't set it up right now, so we just have to do it the hard way. So I have to ask you to manually click and go over there. In fact, I'm just going to have you do that right now because Stephanie is going to go. But if she gets more subs, we'll be able to. If you pass the bar, will we see less of you? Hell no. I've already passed the bar in Virginia. So you're going to see just as much of me. And I have no particular plans to start practicing law in Texas. It just seemed like a good thing to do. Also, I might be able to take the professional engineering exam, which I didn't know was an option until this morning, until someone brought it to my attention, and I might qualify for the professional engineering exam. So maybe I'll do that just for the hell of it, because I'm just a masochist for that kind of thing, and that would be fun. We have a very strange definition of fun over here, I understand. So I'm going to sign off for now. If I could ask you as this stream ends to please click the link in the pinned comment and head over there, I'd really appreciate it. I've been Uncivil Law. I hope all is well. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.